Hey ladies, Susan here. I have a card kit I'm going to demonstrate for you. I'm using this in my July event. So we're going to do some fun watercolor background. We're going to use some glimmer paper for the balloon. I'm marrying the two sets, Lift Me Up, and then the new set, Colorful Seasons. I'm borrowing the words from Colorful Seasons. And it's just kind of a cute card, and we're going to put it together at our Pampered Stamper next week. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how I put it together. So here's your kit. You're going to notice I have a piece of copy paper. I'll show you what that's for in just a second. You're going to have watercolor paper to create the background, and then also the circle for the expression and the smaller balloon. We're going to cut the glimmer balloon out of glimmer paper, and then this is all just going to get mounted to each other to create the card front, and I'm stacking it on very vanilla for the card so you can stamp inside of it. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm using Pacific Point for my accent color, but I used Marina Mist to do my watercolor because I wanted it a shade lighter. So I'm going to open up my ink pad, and I'm going to put some re-inker in the lid. Okay, and then I'm going to get my aqua painter out. And I'll make sure my brush is good and wet. So I've just got water in there, so I'm just going to squeeze it till it drips a little bit. Okay, and then I'm just going to brush some water onto my paper to loosen up the fibers. Remember, the watercolor cardstock is thick and fibrous, and so if we wet it, the water will spread evenly for us. Well, not evenly, but it'll spread out a little bit easier for us. So I just added a drop or two of water to the lid. You can even see how it pools in there. So you don't want to be too dark, because we're looking for a sky background. And you see, the wetter my paper is, the more that color will kind of expand on its own. See how it just kind of spreads out? Also, the wetter your paper is, the longer it takes it to dry before you can finish your card. So that's something to take into account too. We can use our heat gun to heat set the paper, so we don't have to wait as long. We can also blot our paper on our mess mat. So for the purpose of this demonstration, that's what I think I'm going to do. But I don't want it wet when I'm putting it together for you. So I'm just going to flip it over on my mess mat, give it a press, kind of like sponging it off. Okay, I'm going to add a little more blue. A little more came off than I wanted it to. And we're going to let that dry while we do our other pieces. Okay, so set that aside for a second. So now I have to stamp my small balloon, which I'm using Pacific Point now. And my small balloon. Stamp that on there, and then we'll take our die to the Big Shot and just trim that out with our framelit. And I've done that ahead of time, so I've got that balloon ready. And that's one piece. And then this is what I use the copy paper for. So this is just standard printer paper, okay? So I'm going to make a little open-ended envelope for this. So when I cut my glimmer paper, a trick I've learned is to cut it on the back side. If you put your die down on the glimmer side and run it through, it's fine, but then you end up with all these sparkles in your die. So the next time you cut it, say on black, you might end up with black sparkle paper instead of black paper. So what I've learned is I create a little folded piece of paper here, thin copy paper. I put it face down. I cut from the back. So as long as your image isn't going to matter front or back, you can do this. So I take that and I put it upside down, and then I close it, Then I put this in my Big Shot, just like I would to cut it, and I'm actually going to run it through twice. So, because this is thicker paper, the glimmer paper, I run it through twice to make sure the cuts come through all the way. So, that's my little trick with copy paper. And to save a little time on that, I've done that ahead of time because I had to poke all those little pieces out from my balloon. Okay, so now we can start assembling. So let me get my card bases back out here. So my snail. So I'm just going to go ahead and add snail to my Pacific blue, Pacific Point blue. This is, I'm just going to face my very vanilla card with Pacific Point. So I'm just going to get my edge lined up. Put that down. Okay, next is the basic black. It just gets centered on the blue. Okay, now I'm going to use the watercolor paper that we added that background to. And as you can see, my paper is lifting because it's still wet a bit. So you can either wait for it to be completely dry, which is what I advise, but if you don't have time to wait, I'm going to use liquid glue because I think it's going to adhere a little bit better in the end. If I tack that down. Remember, you don't want too much close to the edge because if it oozes out, you'll end up with a sticky spot. Big glob there. I want to spread that out a little bit. I don't want a big glob anywhere. Okay. So turn that over. Position that on my basic black, and I'm pressing. See, I started kind of in the center. I lined it up, but then I started in the center. And I'm just going to press it out. Okay, and then we can flip that whole thing over. Press it down. So that'll be nice and flat on there, okay? Alright, so now I've got our expression. So I have another piece of watercolor paper. Just to keep the textures the same on the front, I stuck with the watercolor. I'm using my archival black. So I'm going to stamp Life is a Beautiful Thing. This is from the Colorful Seasons set. Shoot for the center, because then we're going to use our 2-inch punch to punch that out. And being watercolor paper, you notice I'm holding it down a little bit longer because I want that ink to really transfer into the paper. So now I'm going to put that in my 2-inch punch. Center it. It is a tight fit, but it does work. You of course could use circle thinlits. Get a little bit bigger circle if you want a little edge around that. There we go. Okay. So now let's put some dimensionals on our pieces and then we'll start putting this together. So this one I'm actually going to put on flat. My balloon, if you notice, I didn't punch out the basket pieces because dimensional fits just nicely right there. Then I'm going to take my dimensional strips here and I'm going to add a piece here and here on the balloon. Just a small, thin little piece. Get the sticky side down, right? There we go. Once it didn't stick to my finger, it was just upside down. Okay, so I've got my dimensionals off. So now I'm putting this balloon on. Doesn't necessarily have to be centered. Mine's up and off a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and snail my expression down here in the corner. And then, now here's a little trick with this balloon. I wanted it to be a little bit higher popped up than here. So I'm actually going to layer my dimensionals. So what I mean is I'm taking 2 dimensionals, put one down, peel it off, and I put another one down right on top. So it like gives it a double pop. See, it's a double thick. And then I just overlapped that a little bit to give it dimension on the paper. Okay, so there's the front. And then on my inside, I'm going to stamp again from Colorful Seasons in my archival black. May all your tomorrows be as happy as today. Press that. There we go. Okay. So then we just have the envelope, and of course I stick with the nice simple balloon because we're using it and it's easy, but I think I'm going to put a couple on. I'll stamp one a little off and then one above it. And there we go, the finished project for our event. So I hope you guys are excited that we're doing some hot air balloons. It's summertime. It seems like a fitting time to be doing hot air balloons. We always like to watercolor, so that's fun. And using pieces from that new Colorful Seasons set. So, until I see you, happy stamping. And if I don't see you, go ahead and give this a try on your own or book a party with me and I'll bring it to you. Alright, ladies, see you soon.